the rest of this, we kind of divided into different generations. And, as I said at the beginning, you're going to plan differently depending on what generation you are in. So we'll start with the first here with our Gen X and millennials. I think Gen A is in here too, 50 and younger. So, common planning considerations here, people are building up wealth. They're saving generally a lot into mostly 401ks. I have kids of my own. I have one in college and one going to college. You're seeing a lot of college savings at this point. You're seeing, maximizing your 401k. At this point in life, if there are children, there's, minor children, you want to think about who's going to be the guardian of those children in your will or in your revocable trust, wherever you're going to have that named. Often people have life insurance. We when my husband and I first purchased our home, we bought some life insurance. We bought life insurance when we had the kids. So um, you want to check those beneficiary designations. If you walk away from this presentation with anything, it's beneficiary designations are extremely crucial on anything you have them on, retirement accounts, life insurance, if you put it on a transfer on death on your investment account. You want to make sure that that you have named both primary and contingent beneficiaries on everything. You want to make sure that they're aligned with your estate plan. So if you have a will that says, everything goes to my spouse, and then I want 40% to go to one child, 30% to another, and 30% to another, that beneficiary designation follows that plan. Unless for some reason you don't want it to. But most of the time we tell clients you want that beneficiary designation to follow the estate plan. If a minor is going to inherit assets, you want to make sure that the assets are protected so that they're in trust until at least that minor reaches majority. If they are not, and a minor inherits assets when they are a minor, the courts in that state will kind of have shared control with the guardian of the minor, where they will have to approve any expenses going out of those accounts. That's the last thing you want, is for you to have to get money out for a minor to go school shopping, and you have to present receipts to the court in order for the court to approve that. You just don't want to get involved. If there's a trust for the minor, there's no court involvement in that. And again, review college funding options. So at this point, I think in this generation, you want to make sure you definitely have powers of attorney in place. You might have a simpler will with maybe a trust for children until, say, age 25 or so. But things are going to probably be more simple because you're still accumulating wealth at this point. And then we have the baby boomers. So the baby boomers, those individuals have accumulated that wealth. So they're starting to spend. Are they buying the retirement home? Are they helping with college expenses for grandkids? Are they thinking about retirement? So those people are thinking more about like really taking a big look at, okay, kids are grown. We're going to be on our own. Like, what do we need to do to kind of set us up for the next, several decades? So at that point, we're looking at beneficiary designations. If there are grown children or children that are becoming grown or in their, late teens, early 20s, how are they managing money? Should trust be part of the plan? Like, is the child that's making money at the local pizza place, and but they spend every dollar that comes in, and um, are you concerned about that? Is that going to be a pattern that continues as they get older? Should a trust be a part of a plan? At this point, also, if you're a business owner, what's your thoughts about succession? Is there somebody in that next generation that is going to be able to carry on the business, or does your family not want to be part of the business? And how are you going to get wealth out of that business? Are you thinking about a sale? Are you thinking about, one child might want the business? Okay, how are you going to compensate the other children? So there's a lot of things, and I won't get too into the weeds, but with business owners, there are definitely a lot of things to consider, especially because for a lot of people, that business is a huge chunk of their estate. And if you have family members involved in that business, how are you going to compensate the other family members? Again, college funding for children and grandchildren. This is when people also start thinking about charity. Are there any charities that are near and dear to their heart, that they want to contribute to? Do they want to make that part of an estate plan? The IRA, your retirement account, is the best mechanism for contributing to charity, because that you can either do that during life with a qualified charitable distribution, a QCD, or you can do that after death by naming the charity as a beneficiary of your IRA. That not only helps your other beneficiaries, because they don't have to take out as much of the IRA, and you get the deduction for the amount going to charity. And depending on the level of wealth here, we might see more tax planning. I tend to meet with clients. I provide estate planning advice to our clients here at Manning and Napier. So I generally might meet with clients in that younger generation, but more so in this generation, to think about, hey, our kids are grown. What do we need to do now? What type of planning do we need to be in place? What type of updates do we need to do? A lot of times at this age, it's okay, your prior will named your siblings as fiduciaries, as trustees or executors. Is it time now to name the children in that role? So a lot of those discussions are had. And then the pre-baby boomer, those 70 and older. So these individuals, we do quite a bit of cash flow modeling for these individuals, whether just making sure that they're comfortable with where they're going to be from a spending standpoint over the rest of their lifetime, or whether they want to talk to us about a particular expense. Are they buying the second home? Are they going to finance, a grandchild's education? Are they still helping their grown children with, um, down payments on houses and things like that? So, gifting is generally a higher priority. We talk to clients both about giving money while they're alive, as well as, giving money in their wills. A lot of clients like to see the benefit of giving money while they're alive. So they take those big family vacations, and, they pay the, tens of thousands of dollars to take the whole family, and, rent this big Airbnb and spend time together, because that's more important than just, seeing the money just go out when they pass. If there's trusts involved, making sure that that's all set up properly, whether they have an individual trustee, is that individual trustee going to age out? Are they're contemporary, and, they really need to have a younger trustee or even a corporate trustee. A lot of grandparents we see helping with college funding. They're paying for their grandkids' college, and they're also making a lot of charitable gifts. So, what do they want to support? Do they want to have charitable trusts? Do they want to just give those outright gifts, work with foundations, whatever they want to do? And they're also, at this point, obviously, children, even grandchildren, are probably grown. What types of trust structures might be appropriate, because they're not totally excited with how they manage money, or they might not like the spouse that they picked, or there might be a substance abuse issue or something like that. So, a lot of times we'll see clients maybe trying to simplify things. Do they, maybe the trust they created a while ago for the kids are like, you know what, we don't care. They're fine now. they can manage money. Or maybe there was a marital situation that no longer exists. There was a divorce, and now they're like, okay, I'm fine with now my son receiving the money outright. And then we see a lot of tax planning too. So, as people get closer to the end of life, you kind of have more of an idea of what the estate tax will be at that point. So, we can do some planning as far as gifting, and, we model that out as well, for clients. So where do you go from here? If you don't have a plan, I do encourage you to have a plan. Um, you should work with an attorney to implement that estate plan. You work with your advisors to monitor the plan on an ongoing basis. So, are there assets that need to be, does titling need to be changed on anything? Do you want to put some transfer on death designations, or you need to change some beneficiary designations? So work with your advisor on that. And as things change over time, family situations change. There's a death, there's a marriage, there's another grandchild that's born. Kind of think about what you need to put in place in your plan in order to make it work as you want it to. So I think that's presentation.
Veronica, thank you so much.
Yep.
I appreciate it. I did receive two emails during the presentation with just a couple of questions from
Okay.
folks that are on the call. And I know that we can't get into specifics, and if there is anything, obviously we could talk off the call. And for everyone that is on the call right now, if you do have any questions, please, there should be a button top of the screen that says raise your hand. So if you raise your hand, we'll be able to see that. We can unmute you if you want to ask any questions, and we can go from there. I guess the one question that I have is, so you mentioned just as far as minors go, and minors being named as beneficiaries, and how you're cautious with that. We have a lot of clients that will name, let's say, their spouse or family member that is of age as a primary beneficiary 100%, let's say on a retirement account, but as a backup beneficiary, let's say they have minor children. What is typical? Like, what do you typically recommend in that instance? Is it setting up and if there's not a trust created, is this something where you could designate the trust be created under will, or just completely leave out their children as backup beneficiaries?
Yeah, so if they have a will that has a trust for the child, then the trust for the child should be that, trust, it would be, primary spouse, contingent, trust under will for benefit of Joey. That would be. If you don't have a trust, I don't think you have any choice but to name them and hope that nothing happens, I guess. Because I have seen clients say, it's supposed to go to a custodian under an UTMA. I've never actually seen that come to fruition, so I don't know if that actually works. But I do, it's just a caution, because we have had, what happens with the minors is the parent actually has to petition the court to be the guardian. They're the guardian, but they have to petition. So if one parent passes, or a grandparent, it generally happens, a grandparent passes, a minor's left. Someone has to petition and the court becomes involved. So it can be problematic. But I would say the trust under will, if they don't have that, I would name the children, because otherwise it generally defaults to the estate, which is not an ideal beneficiary on an IRA.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Another question that came in. So it sounds like married couple, husband may be going into a assisted living, nursing home, concerns there. Wife, not the case. Number one, they have a house that they live in. What kind of concerns are there with the house if everything is just set up as joint, in joint name? And then number two, for the majority of the assets are in his wife's retirement account. Is that something that there should be concern over if her husband is the one that needs care, living, this, that, and the other.
Yeah. So usually, and I can speak to New York. That's where I practice. So I can speak to how things would be administered here. And it's pretty standard with most states. So most states, the spouse has the obligation to support their spouse, no matter what. Like you're married, you have an obligation to support your spouse, just like you have an obligation to support your minor children. Um, what we often do in this type of planning, if one spouse needs care and the other spouse doesn't, is transfer the asset. You can't do anything with the house first, because the retirement account you can't really do anything with. The house could be transferred into the wife's name as the well spouse. Most states will allow the spouse that's not in the nursing home to keep the house anyway, but it should be transferred into the well spouse's name because, and this has happened to me, if the well spouse passes away unexpectedly before the spouse in the nursing home, and it's still joint with the spouse in the nursing home, that house will be subject to pay for the care of that spouse that's in the nursing home. So I have had that happen where the well spouse passed and then we had to plan after the fact. So I would say house and wife's name, for that type of planning, house and wife's name. Wife's will says either when she passes, there's a trust set up for her spouse, or the assets go directly to the kids so that it can't be used for husband's care. And then with the IRA is hers or his?
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
That's okay.
The IRA is in her name.
Okay, so I would take the spouse off as a beneficiary and name, if there is a trust under the will for the spouse, you could name that trust or just name the kids as
Okay.
the beneficiary.
Now, is it typical? I mean, could Medicaid or can they come after her retirement account if it has nothing to do? Like, is that possible or probable?
If he receives it, so if she were to die and he received it, absolutely.
But prior to that, though,
Prior to that, what happens is, I used to do this Medicaid planning when I was in practice. What happens is Medicaid looks at, excuse me, Medicaid looks at they look at both the couple's assets and they look at the RMD. So the required minimum distribution coming from the IRA is calculated and looked at overall. So they can't get at the bulk of the IRA, but the money coming out, they assess and it might need to be used to pay for some care.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
All right, I don't see any other questions. Yeah, so Veronica, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. We appreciate this, and yeah, and it's been a very, very good discussion. As always, for our clients, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to call us, email us. We'll get those questions over to Veronica and do our best to get them answered. And we appreciate you taking the time today, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Thank you again. Veronica, thank you. Tim, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Take
Have
care.
a great day, everyone.
You as well. Thank you again.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.